My name is Magic Seth Raphael. And I'm here today to take you on this journey about being the solution. And I want to talk to you about the impossible solution to impossible things. But before we do, we've got a long day ahead of us. We have like 6 more hours left to be bombarded with great thoughts, with people telling stories of wonderful things that they've done, of things that they hope to do, of things that are hard. And we're all going to have to open our minds a little bit. We have to stretch ourselves in order to be prepared for these ideas. And in order to open our minds, I find it's good to sort of open your bodies a little bit. So why don't we just sort of do a little bit of relaxation here. Wiggle yourselves a little bit. Give yourselves a little bit. Yeah, breathe. Oh, that feels good. Feel the oxygen. I want you, everyone, even those people who are watching on the simulcast, on the live stream, I want you to bring your hands out in front of you like this. Wiggle your fingers. Oh, that feels, ooh, yeah, I feel that energy. That's good. Thank you. Now, I want you to face your palms towards each other just like this. Now, cross your arms over just like this, as you may have done when you were a child. Now, turn your palms toward each other again and clasp them together. Now, hold this. And while you're holding this, I want you to think about the many things in your life that you have trouble achieving. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to do this. Not quite yet. Keep thinking. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands over your head and just relax like this on top of your head. You go ahead and try it now. A lot of you guys seem stuck. You let your hands go. You found yourself sort of bound in that position, unable to reach that end goal. It sort of felt impossible. Well, I just did it, which means it's not truly impossible. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. Because we all do impossible things all the time. How many of you have flown somewhere in the past year on an airplane?
Does that mean a passenger or pilot?
Either. In your case, you can raise 2 hands, I guess. So flight is something that is impossible. And I don't just mean like, oh, wow, how do we do it? I mean, you're in a chair flying in the sky. No, I mean, physicists literally said it's impossible. They said it is possible to do things like create a helium hot air balloon, or a helium balloon or a hot air balloon, because it's lighter than air. We can sort of float. That makes sense. But a heavier than air flying machine is impossible. But we know that's not true because we have done it. We do it every day. This is just one case of scientists being absolutely wrong about what they thought was fundamentally impossible. This is the Milky Way. I don't know if you can see it very well in the simulcast or in the back of the theater. Hopefully you've had a chance to lie on the ground at night, in a cloudless night, and look up and see the Milky Way. And it's amazing, for as long as we've been people, we've been doing this, wondering what's out there. And physicists knew that we were getting light from these stars, but they also said that it was impossible to know what those stars were made of. They said it was impossible because we could not tell strictly from light the composition of something so far away. They said if we can go to the stars, we can figure out what they are. But if we can't go there, then we won't know. Then they discovered this thing called spectroscopy, which was a way by looking at the wavelengths coming from a particular star, and they could actually tell the chemical composition, the physical composition of stars, and they turned yet another impossible thing into something that's possible. Now, these are big impossible things and like science level impossible, where the scientists said, no, this can't happen. But things like this happen all the time. There's a really great example right down the street, the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Now, first of all, it's impossible that jellyfish exist in the first place, right? But while they were building the Monterey Bay Aquarium, everyone said, this is an impossible task. You cannot have an aquarium of this magnitude in the style that you want. And we all know that it exists, and it was worth every bit of effort that went into it. All right, so I want you guys to stop being Alice. Alice told the Red Queen, I can't believe that. That's impossible. And the Red Queen said, why, sometimes I believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. There's a great value in believing the impossible, and that's what I want to try and impress upon you guys. If you guys can become an Alice who believes impossible things, you'll find that the things that you thought were impossible aren't really quite as impossible as they seemed yesterday. This is another illustration. This is from around 1734 or so. That is not a person. That is a machine. And that is a chessboard in front of him. There's a box down beneath with gears. It was called the Turk. It was a machine that could play chess. And it would challenge people, and the guy would crank it, and then people would come up and play chess against this machine, and the machine would win. 1734, more than almost 200 years ago, there was a machine capable of beating the best chess players. This is impressive. They solved computer vision. The machine could tell where the pieces were. They solved artificial intelligence, and it was just all around an impressive piece of technology. This is where my magicianhood comes in, because this was a trick. Magicians are really good at hiding people inside boxes. That's what we do. There was a person hiding inside this box playing chess from underneath. Now, still, it's a marvelous feat of engineering. The fact that they could hide this guy and that he could look up from the bottom and move the pieces, it's pretty impressive. But what I think is really interesting is that 200 years later, Deep Blue was built by IBM to play chess against a human. So magicians are imagining what we could do if we could do anything, even before it's possible. And look, Deep Blue even had to have a human move his pieces for him. And to be honest, this is Deep Blue. There's plenty of room for a couple chess masters in there. Just saying. So there's value in thinking about what isn't possible, what you wish you could do. It's why magicians pull coins out of your ears. It's because that's a dream. That's something we wish we could do. And we use whatever techniques we can to try and make that illusion in an attempt to inspire people, to help them aspire to do something, to be something, to achieve something more than they think they could. I'm going to give you just one more historical example. This is a robot that was built by Fu Manchu, who was a magician. And it would come out on stage, and it would and then it would answer questions from the audience. There was nobody inside this one. It was incredible. It was a remarkable feat of engineering. Again, it was radio-controlled robot with a radio broadcasted voice. This was cutting-edge technology. And a couple years later at the World's Fair, Westinghouse presented Electro, its robot that was almost exactly the same. And this robot worked better because the kinks had been worked out several years before by the magician. Fu Manchu was on the cutting edge of technology and realized that his robot would not work on the stage. In rehearsal, it would work fine, but when he got up on the stage to perform, it wouldn't work. And the reason was there was electromagnetic interference from the fluorescent lights that were on at night. No one really knew what radio interference was at that time. So magicians were on the cutting edge, trying to do the impossible, making it possible. Eventually, Westinghouse added a cigarette and a bellows so that their robot could smoke. You know, again, magicians had it right the first time. So I want to tell you a little bit about the techniques that you can use to be like a magician, to start achieving the impossible. To a magician, nothing is impossible. And that is the first technique. It's called the mind movie. It's a really simple technique. You just close your eyes and imagine what you wish you could do. Now you can constrain it to a particular domain. If you are thinking about Middle East peace, you can close your eyes and start imagining what that really looks like. You don't think about where you are now. You don't think about the technologies. You don't think about the political situation. You imagine the end goal. This lets you think about the actual perfect situation. This is how I go about designing new magic effects. I don't think about what I can do, because if I think about that, I'm going to end up something that is not magical. So I want to show you another use of this. This is a little video by Bonnier Technology. It's a tablet computer that they made. This is completely CGI. This is all fake. They just designed a video of what they thought the future could look like. Now, some of you are smirking because you have one of these now. All right? It became reality. This was completely impossible several months ago. But they decided to go out, make their mind movie. They went even a step further and produced a real video from it. And that's the idea. It's to create a vision that is so enticing, so compelling, that someone has to go out and make it. So I've got one right here. It's an iPad. Yes, they're as cool as you thought they would be. And I'm kind of disappointed, because as a magician, my job is to make technology do impressive things. But this thing is already so freaking impressive. What else can I do? So I had to think a little bit out of the box, and I want to try something with one of you from the audience. Let's see. Can I get an audience member up here? Anyone? OK, you guys don't all raise your hands at once now. You've already got an iPad. Let's see. What's your name?
Peter.
Peter, would you come on a stage with me for a moment? A round of applause for Peter, please. All right, Peter, have you ever held an iPad before?
No.
No? Are you sure?
Yes.
All right. Well, here it is right there. That's me. You're just going to hold this with one hand in front of you as best you can. That's perfect, just like that. I won't use this quite yet. All right, Peter, have you ever played cards before?
Yes.
Yes, you have?
Yes.
Excellent. I have a deck of cards right here.
I'm not surprised.
Why aren't you surprised? I'm a card-carrying magician, I guess.
Give me a one-shot.
All right, Peter, I want you to just go ahead and say stop somewhere in the middle of the deck. You can even stick your finger in the middle if you like. Right there? You're touching one card. I want you to take your card and look at it, but don't show it to the audience. You've got it?
I've got it.
Don't show it to the iPad either. Uh-oh, it's too late.
I did.
The iPads, can you show them what the iPad says? And what is your card? Turn it over. It is... The iPad just read your mind, Peter. Read your card. All right, let's go one step further. Can I get you to think of something visual? Yeah? You've got it already. You've got something in mind? Something that you could imagine. Something visual. Hold it in your mind. Don't look at the iPad. I want you to look out at the back of the audience. Concentrate on whatever object you're thinking of. All right? See what the iPad thinks. Don't look, don't look.
Oh, sorry.
Don't look, keep looking back there. Can you tell the people in the back of the audience what you were thinking of?
Beach ball.
Go ahead and look at the iPad.
It's a beach ball.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks a lot.
Well done.
So that's one technique. It's the mind movie. Think about what you wish you could do, and then figure out how to do it. Now that's the hard part. How do you figure out how to do it? And that's the next step. This is a video.
Did you get a virus? No. Did you get 400,000 viruses? Yes. Very yes. Well, hurry up and do something about it before it gets worse. The kid! What the? Whoa! It's cold out here. Hey!
I heard an audible gasp. Someone in the audience gasped when that cartoon character broke out of his screen. I did the same thing. I love this. I've been watching this cartoon online for many years, and I had been so conditioned to believe that this character could only be inside that little rounded rectangle. I was blown away when I saw him actually come out, pop out, and start manipulating his environment. What's the key here? The key here is assumptions. I had been building these assumptions about what was possible within the world of that cartoon, and the designer of the cartoon realized that he could play with that he could break that assumption of me, my own assumption, in order to create something new and impossible. So this is a technique magicians use. Now there's a whole bunch of them. The first are to understand what your own assumptions are. When I'm about to go out and use an iPad, I assume that no one has seen an iPad before, or I assume that I can borrow an iPad, or I assume that someone in the audience is going to have an iPhone that I can compare the iPad to. I figure out which of these are actually helping me and which ones have the potential for being disruptive. Maybe I know that someone out there has an iPad and I can maybe somehow secretly pick up on it, breaking my own assumption. So that's the first type of assumption, my own assumptions. The second is the assumption of the audience. You guys assume tons of things. When you walk in here, you assume that I'm going to give you a talk. No applause yet. Thank you. But I need to understand all of your assumptions. I need to understand your assumptions about a deck of cards, about an iPad, about the relationship between me and the people who organize this event. And any one of those I can use to create some new twist. Something impossible becomes possible. I want to give you a real concrete example. This is an impossible thing that has just recently become possible, and that is healthcare. Have a round of applause for healthcare. These guys were using magicians' techniques. They looked at their assumptions. They assumed, hey, in order to pass this bill, we're going to have to pass this bill with some majority, and we're going to have to get enough votes on our side, until someone stepped back and looked at their assumptions and said, hey, we made an assumption that we have to do it this way. There's another way called reconciliation. By changing their assumptions, by breaking them, they were able to do something that everybody across the board deemed impossible as a failure. So when you go back home today, or when you're listening to these next talks, think about what in your own life are your own assumptions about what you're doing. Which of them are holding you back? What are the assumptions of the people who you're selling to, who are the ultimate end goal of your projects? How can you use their assumptions to achieve the impossible? Here's another technique. This is an M.C. Escher painting, and it's got a very, very strange perspective. Changing your perspective is a really great way to find new solutions. This is an illustration kind of like M.C. Escher. It's a crate that is impossible to build because this red bar is sort of in front, but then it's also behind, and it's like, it sort of warps my mind when I look at it. So how do you take something that's impossible and create something that is possible? The contrast is really low here, but this guy is actually standing in that crate. His name is Jerry Andrus. Passed away. He's a fantastic magician and optical illusionist, but he actually built this box. I'll let him get out of it for you. There he is.
What's this? Look, it's not a box at all. I was just standing in the corner of this framework, and you can see there's no resemblance to a box at all.
So there was just one perfect angle from which that thing looked like that impossible crate. If you move your perspective at all, it suddenly becomes much less amazing. But something that seems impossible from one perspective may merely require a change of your own perspective to understand how to do it. The converse is also true. If you have something that looks totally normal from one perspective, you can simply change your perspective oftentimes and get an impossible, wonderful situation. So it works both ways. Here's another technique, randomness. So first of all, this is an amazing animal. It's a turtle, kind of like the jellyfish. How do these things exist? The answer is through evolution. And everyone sort of thinks they understand evolution, but in fact, it's pretty complex and subtle, and I'm going to bastardize it right here. This animal came to be because it changed. And every little change it made was either good and helped it survive, or helped its predecessor survive and its chance, or didn't. But the important key is that when we think about evolution in terms of a product or a company, we think, all right, we have our product, now we want to make it a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better, and it's going to evolve. What they're forgetting is that there's a whole part that is chance. Every time this animal changed, there was a 50-50 chance that it was going to make the animal die. So how do we take our risks in our own lives, in our own presentations, that let us make mistakes, so that when we do find the good ones, we're apt to find ones that we would not have even thought of before? Finding a way to add an element of chance through tossing a coin, or whatever it is, whatever mechanism you need to use to change your perception, to introduce chance into your workflow, gives you the opportunity to discover something that is wholeheartedly new and possibly even better. And all right, that's another turtle from Kung Fu Panda saying nothing is impossible. I want to show you guys just one last technique. Here's a beautiful video of a man making a sculpture. I just love it. There's no CGI here. This is all real. And the secret, of course, is that this is how it was filmed. It was filmed him destroying the sculpture, and then he played it backwards in the original, and it just looks incredibly beautiful. And so that's the last technique I want to share with you guys, and that's doing things backwards. So go ahead, take your hands. We're going to start at the end. Put your hands up on top of your head. Start at the end. Start at the end goal, what you wish you could do, what seemed impossible. Now bring your hands up in front of you, just like that. Twist them around like that, and let go. And suddenly you find that you have a whole new way to look at achieving the impossible. I'm Magic Seth. Thanks a lot.